All right, we're live. Portobello, finally, we're we're getting this done.
It's
Welcome.
gonna happen eventually. Yes, glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here too. All right. So January 2025, you are the champion. How does it feel, man?
It feels great. I feel like back in April when I lost 3-2, the biggest deal for me then is like all these what ifs. Like, what if I had just done this or built a little differently, played a little differently? When you win, you just don't have to deal with any of those thoughts. It's just like peace, you know?
Yeah. It's like you don't have anything to look back to with regret. It's great.
Yeah, there's no regrets. It's just like I did what I had to do and it worked out.
And how long have you been playing 35 pokes?
So I started in the latter half of last February. So February 24, I joined like basically a year ago, pretty much exactly a year ago from today.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in the latter half of February here. So pretty much a year. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really flown by. But I was kind of I wasn't really playing that much 35 pokes for a few of those months. So I don't quite remember all of it, but a lot of those months have been pretty active, especially those first like 3 or 4. And then I really got back into it this year.
So like your first tournament was the one after February, I
Yeah,
imagine.
the first tournament I played in was March Sea King, my beloved. I did okay. I didn't make it that far, but I did okay.
And then April.
And then April happened, and that was a whole thing.
Yeah, the you get the finals.
The 2 hour finals.
And then since then you haven't been in finals, or have you been in finals again?
Nope, that's I've only been in finals twice, April and January.
And you won the last one. So
Yeah, and fingers crossed, maybe make it to a second finals in a row with February, but who knows? This is a very different meta
yeah, I
from
mean,
January.
if I would say that if you manage to win the February as well, I think you would be the only one who is a defending champion that actually successfully defended a championship, right? I think
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think anyone's done back to back,
no, I don't think so.
which is actually really surprising.
I mean,
I think it
it's
shows that
surprising.
people are good. Like
It's
in general, it's a lot of just good players.
it's surprising and also goes to show that it's actually hard to do. So,
Yeah, no, it's not trivial. There's a lot of good players you got to go through.
hmm so what's your opinion on January, the January 2025 meta?
Honestly, I mean, obviously I'm a little biased here because it's my winning meta, but I think it was really good actually. A lot of people kind of got fed up with a few of the centralizing things like Crawdaunt and Clodsire, but if you kind of look into it, if you really dig into some of those kind of mid to lesser tier Pokemon, there's a lot of potential that I think people did not appreciate. Like if you look on the 35 Pokes website, I don't know who decided this, but it has like a 3.5 stars out of 5, which frankly I think is too low. I think it's like at least 4. I found it pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. Um, I just had trouble coming up with like different strategies myself, but I mean, I found myself just doing brain dead Mesprit when I couldn't think. So,
See, Vesper is one of those Pokemon that a lot of people like. I don't know. I feel like they didn't explore because it has so many options you can use it for, but just not a lot of people used it that much. I think that it was overlooked, like a lot of other guys.
I
Kingdra also overlooked, and then a lot of even like Absol, Jinx, like people just were not even considering these Pokemon.
I know there was some discussion with Jinx. And Mesprit definitely had a lot of usage, but I think the set variation wasn't really that diverse. I noticed that you pulled a scarf, Mesprit,
Yeah, I used a Scarf Mesprit to counter a Scyther.
and I think that was extremely smart.
Yeah,
I
because most people would see the Mesprit and think free U-turn.
right.
And so they kind of do it without even really considering that I could just Oko you. It's Ice Beam, but I mean that's the wonder of using a Pokemon that people are not thinking about that much.
And Mesprit, historically, at least for me, it's been known to do that. I mean, you may know I'm a Gen 7 PU player, and
Hmm.
Mesprit has had his fair share of sets of like just being either an attacker, a tank, support, just straight up self rock. Like
Well,
all the
right, because I
things.
mean it's just so well rounded.
Yeah,
They can kind of do whatever you need it to do.
it's a trick room setter if you need it. It has healing wish. It has U turn, right? It can do calm mind, stored power. It has really good coverage. It's a
It has great
it's a
coverage.
it's a very diverse mon that you can make it do whatever your team needs it for.
Exactly. Really, really good Gloomon. It's
Yeah,
not going to be beating worlds, but it can really fill gaps.
definitely, especially in the meta like 35 pokes.
Exactly. You don't really, you kind of know exactly what you need to deal with.
So
It's,
I see that you mentioned some of the mons that you used in your finals.
mhm.
Actually, do you want to go ahead and tell me how was your experience with like the tournament or finals, if you want to be specific, or you want to talk about
Yes,
your team, whatever you want to do.
I feel like, so first of all, this tournament, I think I played the final 3 rounds within one weekend, which was a little crazy. So I was kind of having to work pretty quickly, working a lot that weekend, specifically for the tournament. But I basically my main thing going into team building with this tournament is I was doing a lot of counter teaming. A lot of people they they're 1, 2, maybe 3 teams and they just roll with that. And I definitely noticed that was true for pretty much all of my opponents except Onkelano. He was the exception, my finals opponent. But because of that, I was able to build a lot of very weird teams with very specific tech that generally is not good. But if you know exactly what you're going against, then it works really well. Like against Habada, Slowbro with Signal Beam and Rindo Berry, which makes no sense to put on just a team for laddering, but because I knew he had history, there was going to be a problem. I get away with running that kind of thing, and it took me a long to this tournament because I was doing my research.
That's great. I mean, you were in the zone essentially.
I was locked in fully. I was I'd be like at work and I was like on break. I'm like thinking about it, like kind of looking at stuff like, well, what if I can do this? That's how I know I was gonna be in for the long haul with this tournament. Because there's been tournaments where I kind of just am the guy who's cruising through its 2 or 3 teams, but this one I really liked the meta. I thought it was a lot of variety, so that's why I was doing a lot of building. So I mean, just looking at my tournaments I made just for the or teams I made for the tournament, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specifically for the tournament.
That's actually pretty. That's actually pretty good. I mean, I usually end up making at least for sure two, and I
Hmm.
try to at least have four. But six? Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's 6 because I had at least one team that I made for each player that's going against, and overall I used 7 because I have one like fallback team that I liked that I had built before the tournament started. So yeah, I used 7 different teams.
So we're gonna talk about want to talk about the team that you use in the finals. Let's say the Victory Road one.
Yeah, the Victory Road one. That's actually kind of interesting because this is the team I made to counter Toy Time King, as it happens. But the reason I decided to recycle it is because two big reasons. I noticed that Milano did not use a whole lot of Clodsire, and he basically never used Type Null. And this team has an Oricorio, which is only shut down by a Clodsire, essentially, and Kingdra set specifically, which is only shut down by Type Null. And so it's like, well, I have this, I know it works. It seems like a good matchup in general, based on what Angolan has been building. Because I didn't have teams that like specifically countered any team that he brought. Because he was like me in that he had a lot of different teams. Like he's just, I don't think he used the same team more than twice throughout the tournament. So instead of like trying to counter a specific team, just kind of vibes on what he liked to use in general.
Right.
And so I came back to this team I made for Toy Time. And yeah, Oricorio was basically a bum because in that final match there was a Clodsire, but it did help me aid in Quadsire so they can get a double in and set up and win. I just think the Victory Road card, despite being pretty bad in the meta.
The Oricorio really suffered, uh, at least in the latter. Um, the Clotsire just completely just shut it. um,
Yeah, I think it's a great example of how things are very dependent on their surroundings. For example, I mean Kecleon and Alchemy, both in January and February, both of those guys sucked in January because of the power level, what was prevalent. Clodsire just ruins Alchemy's life. But now that we have a meta with no unaware guys, Alchemy's doing a lot better, and Kecleon's actually doing stuff surprisingly. And like if you dropped in Oricorio, who sucked in January, it would be really good in February. But yeah, Clodsire ruined a lot of lives.
it sure did. I mean, it was. I would say Claude, Scyther, Infernape, and Slowbro were like, in a way, like what dictates what the meta was kind of built around, and obviously Crawdont, but
Yeah, my S tier Pokemon are Clodsire, Shaman, Crawdont, and Slowbro. Because the three of those make an incredibly valuable defensive structure, and Crawdon just blows everything up. It's impossible to consistently answer. But yeah,
right.
then Scyther and Infernape just put a lot of offensive pressure on stuff that if you're not too fast enough, they can just ruin your life by you turning and taking its big stab. Which is why a lot of Pokemon got overlooked. It's like, oh, well, why would I use Houndoom when it's around? But then you go to the finals and you see Angelano actually using a Houndoom because I think he was also pretty team builder.
Actually, what are your thoughts on Houndoom?
Definitely did not ever use. I have it in my C tier. I'm just looking at my tier list I put together. I think it definitely had some good merits, right? Like Sun, if you want to use that, Fire Blast in Sun is really scary. And frankly, if this thing has the right, if you get good predictions, it's very difficult to deal with for a defensive structure. But it's just very easy to out offense Houndoom. It's just not fast enough. So it suffers at the hands of things like Scyther, Infernape, even just Crawdon can Aqua Jet and it dies. So I think it has good potential if you're going against someone who likes to play a defensive style, but it's really, really bad into other offensive teams because it's just not fast enough and it doesn't have the bulk to back it up.
Yeah, I found myself that Houndoom is really good if it's allowed to run specs.
Right.
I
And
feel
this was a
like
meta where
it
rocks
was
were up all
not.
the time.
Mm-hmm. It is very hard to come in safely. Very hard. And there's other fire types, faster ones, bulkier ones. It's just like,
It's like, why would you use Houndoom when you have things like Torkoal and Infernape, you know?
or even Crawdon on the dark side, you know,
Right, exactly.
or
And Crawdon,
Absol.
even on the special side, Crawdon is hitting harder than Houndoom can,
It
which
is.
is so sad for Houndoom.
Yeah. Um. What about Golurk? Like, what are your thoughts on
So
Golurk?
Golurk is definitely a Pokemon I noticed that I had on a lot of my teams, and I think it's the second best breaker in the tier, second only to Crawdont, because Golurk has a lot of downsides if you look at it plainly next to Crawdont. Crawdont has special sets. It can run boosting sets. It has Aqua Jet, but Golurk has a lot of prevalence with that big stab combo of Poltergeist and Earthquake. Very
Mm-hmm.
difficult to deal with, which really is the reason Shaman was always running no item by the end,
Yeah.
because you had to have an answer for Poltergeist, and that was basically the only one. But then I found myself like obviously running a lot of trick just to deal with the Shaman because it was always coming up. And yeah, over the course of the game, Golurk was very difficult to deal with because I could easily get it in with things like Slowbro, throw off a Poltergeist, and then just leave. And without a rock weakness, like this thing could just come in a lot over the course of the game and kind of slowly wear you down. Whereas Crawdont, I feel like, did not have the same longevity because of that rock weakness and often running Life Orb. But Golurk, really good Pokemon. Really hard to deal with defensively. And if you get good positioning, it's very rewarding.
I just find it interesting that having just those two created an entire month where itemless or Colbur Berry was like an actual consideration for many Pokemon.
Right. I think like by
I,
the end, in like those final few sets, most people were running a Shaman and it almost never had an item because it just exerts that much pressure.
I
And
was
when suddenly when Golurk can't freely Poltergeist and you have Shaman can come in on free, that
mhm.
really gives a lot of breathing room.
I was literally running itemless with Slowbro.
Yeah.
So it's
I think I
just
encountered that once or oh, so one of these are itemless too.
hmm. um so Kingdra.
Hmm.
I find it interesting that with Kingdra, um when I first saw the list I was like, oh, Kindra's gonna go ham. And then like after it dropped and everybody's playing and I'm like thinking, you know, the crit build might actually struggle a lot. There's
And there's only one reason, and that's type null.
I mean type no is like the seal on the like on the deal, but I feel like there was other things I guess you can say.
There are definitely other factors. Like first of all, Kingdra, it needs that setup time to get the focus energy
Mm-hmm.
up,
And it's very hard to
and
set
it
up on a bunch
and
of
it
breakers.
like yeah, it really wants to set up focus energy and agility,
Yeah,
which is obviously difficult. But yeah, that and type null obviously just completely destroys that set because of battle armor, and it has no run armor. And then fifth, that's and yeah, the offensive
you cut off
pressure
a second
against it.
there.
Yeah, with the physical sets, we're kind of doomed with Shaman and Slow
Yes.
being so prevalent.
And I feel like even then, like, are you gonna opt with like speed, or you gonna go with more HP so you actually have more survivability and more time to set up both the agility and the focus energy? Um, and if that's the case, then you're running the risk of, let's say, Torkoal, Sun, and then Shift 3 is faster than you. You know?
And then suddenly your Kingdra has spent all this time just to die to like
Exactly.
a Solar Blade.
Or you saw
As another
Speed.
one of those Pokemon that's like hard to get set up, but can be really rewarding if you do it,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Then,
what happened in that final game. Because I was running like a max HP, max special attack Kingdra, and
right.
because of that HP, it lived the Earthquake from Clodsire and a Giga Drain from Shaman. And if it were not that bulky, it might have died. But because I was running, Angelano was running such a bulky, slow team in that final match, Kingdra just happened to work out really well in that matchup. It was literally my only win con because Oricorio was a bum.
Oricorio was a bait.
Yeah, it literally was a bait for Clodsire and served no other purpose in that match.
It's like, how do I bait in the Clocksire all the time? Just bring in Oricorio.
Very sad. I mean, Oricorio in the game that actually built it against Toy Time King, it did incur a forfeit because it was setting up a Quiver Dance for a Scyther and it would have just 4-0'd because I knew he didn't have a Clodsire in the team I was prepping for. But yeah, right into a Clodsire, you're playing a 5-6.
Are there any mons in January that you think were like underused or underappreciated besides the ones that we mentioned?
I definitely think that ghost types below Golurk, those Tomb and Cursula, are a bit underappreciated. Because
I
Cursula hits
agree.
you really hard, and Spiritomb is like just really good defensively
Mm-hmm.
and can just kind of it's a good stop check, good spin blocker. I use both of them as spin blockers throughout the tournament. So I think both of those were enough
I
because
think
almost no one used them.
I think Cursula had a lot of potential. Like I was about to. I actually created a team that I didn't get time to play with, but I created a team that it had like a life orb, modest Cursula.
Right,
Um,
which is it kind of just you
it
can't take
just,
hits from that.
yeah, it just,
It kills.
it, you bring it into a slow bro. Slow bro's gonna do what? Like just switch or take the hit. Why is it gonna take the hit though? Like it does not want to take that
Yeah,
shadow
like
ball.
modest
It does not want
modest
to.
life orb, it's dying in one hit. I don't care what slow you're.
So I was just thinking like the fact that Slowbro is used a lot, why not a Corsola? You know? It has high speed def, so even something like an Amesprit, praying that it's not knockoff will be just,
Yeah, no,
like
for sure. It also has good utility to be annoying, which like it can set rocks for itself. It can strike sap and it just has that kind of utility. Same for Spirit Tomb, ton of utility options,
Willow.
and like just yeah, Will-O-Wisp. Spirit Tomb actually is one of the few Pokemon in Gen 9 that's still toxic, I think. And if you have priority with Sucker Punch, Shadow, Sneak, you can Trick Room, Nasty Plot. Like this thing could do anything you kind of want it to,
A foul
but
play.
people want rare. And then as a spin blocker,
Oh, hold up.
most people are running Rapid Spin.
I think you cut off of there. You said something about rapid spin?
Yeah, most people are running Rapid Spin, which just makes having a Ghost type at all pretty valuable because basically the only defogger is Scyther and like okay, technically Oricorio, but and Swanna, but no,
And
those they don't
Confe?
count.
Confe was like the most common defogger.
But basically, having the Ghost type,
But I know what you mean. Rapid spin was the most opted option.
right? Because a lot of people had Torkoal and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the latent defensive value, but I think they got overlooked just because first of all, Crawdon. Everyone was scared of out of their mind because of Crawdon. And Golurk too. It's just the better ghost type of the three. But they definitely all had their own niches. So I think you could definitely get away with even running multiple of them on the same team, and they can still provide a lot of value. Yeah, Corsola, Spiritomb, very underrated.
I can't help but to agree. So, um, it's one of those things that like post meta is like you could definitely see the meta still evolve, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, just talking after the fact, helps develop that. So,
Right, we're definitely gonna see that, especially with like the upcoming player league. You're gonna see stuff that people were not running in the months when those months were active. because people have had more time to reflect on them. And if
Mm-hmm.
ever we come back with January, I think you're gonna see some different trends.
Yeah, the people can look at the replays, your replays. They can listen to this, and any other further discussions that we've had in the Discord. Definitely, I feel like there's a lot of like developments that can still take place.
Yeah, I feel like January was one of those months where there's only like a handful of Pokemon that are like actually worthless,
I mean, we
but
have the
most of
obvious
them,
ones.
right? There's the obvious offenders like Unknown and Wugtrio, but like most of these Pokemon can provide some sort of value. I
Mm-hmm.
liked about April as well.
Well,
In April, even the shitmons like Rapska and Golduck were like actually usable and could actually get a lot of stuff done if you know how to use it and you're putting a lot of thought in how to support those Pokemon to do the best they can. Like Toadstool is another Pokemon in January, which doesn't seem very good, but it can do a couple specific nothing else can. Like being
mm-hmm.
the only support user is always good.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I felt about Jinx. Like Jinx was like it actually hits the entire tier offensively.
Yeah, no, it's actually really strong offensively. It's just another one of those guys who's like, well, it loses a Scyther and Infernape, so why would I run it? But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like people got too caught up with getting out offense because this meta has Slowbro. I think there's just so much potential to bring in these slightly slow threats because you can bring him in with Slowbro really safely and easily, and then just leave.
Not to mention that you can run, you know, Lovely Kiss, and like even if it's not
And
as
yeah, nothing.
accurate, you can still like let's say it's like if you know that they're gonna bring in something that's just gonna eat the hit and leave, why not just try to sleep it?
Exactly. A sleeping Slowbro's suddenly not able to do its job, even though it's handling Jinx fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't teleport anymore. You're suddenly not able to bring in your teammates safely, and you're just sitting there.
You have to you have to sit there and actually take hits in order to do your job. So
And of course, I have to give a special shout out to the funny Jinx set, which I only got to work once in a random ladder game, which is the core nasty plot ice beam set.
Encore
Fishing
nasty
for
plot.
someone to yeah. So the idea is to fish for someone setting rocks like turn one,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just trap the rocker before they put rocks, and you encore them, and their life is then over. And you also run as focus sash to live like the one hit from whatever they have that's probably faster. And yeah, I got to work once, and the person who I don't remember who I fought, but they were in shock and awe when they saw what happened to them. So they got 6-0'd by Jinx off the bat.
What was your one attack?
Ice Beam.
Ice beam.
Even like, because once you're at like +6, Ice Beam's killing things like Slowbro and Torkoal.
Spit Death Torkoal? I guess.
I don't remember the calc because a lot, I don't know, people were running. Some people ran Spadef Torkoal, some people were running Fizdef, but I can look real quick. I'll just bring up a Jinx and
I don't. I personally don't go without a Spit Death Torkoal, especially with my experience in May. So,
yeah. Well, you're
so
scarred by your experiences there.
I am scarred by my experiences, and Torkoal clutched with the Spit Death. So,
But if we just take like a normal um, max HP Torkoal,
mm-hmm.
and you take a modest +6 Jinx Ice Beam, it's doing at least 113%.
That's great.
And if you give it all Spadef, and what's a Spadef boosting nature? Just this,
Not.
it's doing like 80% at least still.
I mean, it's still respectable. It's really
Yeah,
good.
so it could live, but
And practically everything else, like, just eats it. Like, not nicely. Like the only thing I can think that can survive is probably Probopass, and I don't think people are using Probopass.
I saw a couple pro passes early on in the months, but it did not make any appearance for the last 2 weeks. And I saw some really jank stuff for Probo Pass, but it's just not meant to be.
It's not meant to be. It has little niche in June. I'm still gonna defend it in June.
I will say this about Probo Pass. In random battles where it gets the Terra fighting set with body press, absolute menace. But in tiers where you get to decide your own team, bum. Absolute bum.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I think it's a really funny looking design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Probo Pass is one of my D tier picks for January, along with Toadscruel, Wugtrio, Kecleon, and Swanna. Because these guys are just not good. Toadscruel was the only one I ever bothered using in the tournament because it could do one thing, and that was Spore. But the
It
other guys, they can't really do anything.
it could spin.
Swanna can defog, it can set Tailwind if you're really desperate for that.
Swanna was a good
And yeah,
scarfer.
it's more like a surprise. It's good as a surprising scarfer because when you see it, you don't really know what's going to happen.
When I
But then
say
if you,
it, I'm thinking it's only scarf because I'm like, why would you justify using it?
I saw people use it on early as like a defogger, and that's kind of how I became to recognize it. But then if you're taking rocks with the scarf, I mean, just you go slow brones. What's Swanna gonna do? Even if you flip turn off of them, you're still taking a quarter of your health, and it frankly does not have good offensive stats.
Yeah. I mean, if you're using it as scarf, it's because of the team structure. But the reason why it's scarf would work out is because it hits Infernape and Scyther and Shiftry, and you know.
Right? It can definitely it can be a sniper of sorts,
Mm-hmm.
but like by that token, Wug Trio can also kill Infernape,
No,
but like no one's doing that.
Wugtrio is actually weak. It can't do much. Swanna at least has Raybird. Like
Swan does at least have decent stabs. Wug Trio gets like liquidation and triple dive. Woo.
triple time.
I don't think I ever once built a team about with a Wug Trio at all. Same for Kecleon and obviously Unknown.
Bro, even in Perfect 35 when I had it available, it was just so bad.
It just sucked.
It betrayed the people who used it. That's how
It,
bad
it's
it
just
was.
it just can't do anything right.
It needs a
Like
buff. It needs wave
at least
crash.
Dug Trio can trap stuff in certain scenarios, but yeah, it just can't do anything.
It needs
It has no
adaptability
boost,
and wave crash to do anything.
and it also its abilities do nothing. Yeah, you're right. Like we come on, they hated Bug Trio when they made it. I don't know why they even made it.
Or at least give it technician if it's gonna have something funny triple dive or whatever.
Yeah, nothing about Bug Trio's design is cohesive at all, and so it was always doomed to just be terrible.
By the
Not to
way,
mention it being only water type, so you're not hitting anything that resists water ever.
at least if it had flip turn, like it'll be a fast pivot. It can
But no,
have.
It doesn't get nice things. It just
It
doesn't get
doesn't. It
anything.
doesn't get anything. I might
It's another one
I
of those
might mess
Pokemon that's
I might mess around with something like that for like a perfect vision. I'll do that. I'll probably give it like two nice little buffs. One of them
yeah,
being a flip turn.
your perfect vision needs to have Wugtrio in Little Cup, and then it might be good. I hate this thing sucks. I hate the design the way it is because it could have been neat, but they just did not give it anything.
Actually, I'm curious. So, how did you find out about 35 posts.
I think I think I saw one of those Reddit posts back in last year. I was like, huh, I guess I'll just like take a look. And I took a look and I played a few games. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty neat. And then I stuck around and I never left. They never got rid of me. And here I am today.
And you made videos. Like, did you have you been making videos like way before joining, or?
So the start of my YouTube career is a couple of things. It was first of all random battles because I've always been a big random battle guy. I'm usually top 100 in the ladder. I kind of gravitate to it. And then also I was early on doing analysis about Uber's UU back when that was in its early days.
Right.
Got started, so I was already kind of getting into the making videos idea. And then I saw 35 poke. Like, this seems cool. I mean, people probably relate with this if I do, and turns out they did. Like go, and we're very interested in the meta because of it. And 35 is doing really well.
Have you gotten like people to tell you that, like, oh, I joined the, you know, the server or the community because I watched one of your videos?
I've had a lot of people who are like I'll drop in randomly in like the general chat, say something, and someone there will be like, "Oh, you're the guy who made the video." I was like, "Yeah, that is me." And I always puts a smile on my face because like not to like sound braggadocious, but I
No, no,
got
no,
a
no,
few
no.
hundred people to join. Like a
Yeah,
lot of people joined because of that video,
I mean
and so yeah, I had a
that's
lot
the
of
love
people
of the
tell me that.
community, right? So
Yeah, no, that video is that was awesome to see because also when I made that, I had like maybe 100 subscribers max. And so I was like, in the break room at work eating lunch, and I looked at the video. I was like, wait, why there are 4,000 views on this? What's going on?
which videos was this one? The February one, or?
Yeah, this is the one. It caught a lot of people's eyes because it has a Zeb Strika in the thumbnail and says, this is the number one Pokemon, which by usage, it was used the most. I don't think it's the best Pokemon by a long shot in that tier, but he used it the most back in that when it was active. Because it just happened to do a couple of the right things, mainly ruining Superior.
Actually, for the trios, you were knife faced, right? For the did we face for
Yeah,
trios? Or, yeah, we did,
did
right?
I think we did, yeah, because we were both February players.
Yeah, there you go. And mind you, I have never played February, so I'm just like just testing things, messing around with things, looking at replays wherever I can,
Yeah,
and I couldn't bring myself to use Substrika, but TTK loves Substrika. Oh man,
and
and,
if
and
he is in love with a Pokemon, it's probably at least decent.
like no, no, like he has some, he cooked up some sets, man. Like I mean, I'm not even sure if it got used, and I don't know if he wants to keep a secret until he reveals it, but it definitely he's definitely cooked with it. I would say, and it makes me wonder, like, because you know you're talking about it and up in your video, and I'm just wondering, I'm like, man, it must have been the golden days of just like playing actively in the ladder in February.
You know, people really like Zebstrika just to get rid of Superior, but then they figured out it can also like hit Quagsire with Trailblaze and overheat other things. And like it
Yeah.
just has enough coverage to be pretty useful always, and it's the fastest thing I think. So that's always
Hmm.
good.
And it has some
But
nice support moves too.
yeah, it can just be annoying and like hit you with toxic and protect and sub stuff.
It taunts. It does that too. The subtoxic.
Yeah. I personally did not use it though in the trios tournament because it just did not fit any of my teams.
I should also just say, yeah, congratulations too, right? You guys won.
Yeah, I became a champion of trios and January within like a week, which is really cool.
let's turn this into trios interview if you want.
I will say I'm pretty much set on eventually making a video about my finals game in trios since it's just best of one because that was a really interesting game. It was 159 turns long. I brought stall. My opponent brought a shed shell Skarmory, and I still won.
I
Yeah, it's a
wonder what
crazy
that
game.
looks like. I need to look. I need to look at that replay then, because I cannot imagine what the stall would look like.
So I have it pulled up here. It's Quagsire, Clodsire, Skarmory, Aromatisse, Snorlax, and Alolan Golem. And
Okay.
Golem is only there to remove Skarmory, and it failed to do that in the game that I won it with. And
just by
Snorlax
just
is just
just
like so
just,
bad.
just by mentioning Claude and Quag at the same time, I'm like, okay, yes.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
you can't see those two in the same room, and you know something bad's gonna happen.
something definitely something ain't right about this.
And Skarmory's there. I mean, yeah, February was a little devious, but there's also a lot of good stuff that can break them, so it's
Yeah,
not
there's a
actually
lot of
overwhelming.
breakers. A lot of breakers.
Like my opponent, it was Zungo. I played Zungo, and he had a like choice banded Tauros, really scary. But after I killed it, then it turned into the slog of basically me wearing down Skarmory with Stealth Rock the entire game.
I found that expert belt was the better option for we just said it, Tauros.
Yeah, I guess Expert Belt gives you the damage you need on Quagsire with Trailblaze.
Yeah, like it's just like, oh, easy, easy, easy kills. Boom.
I mean, there's a reason Air Balloon Ledge was popular in that meta, and it's only Tauros.
Because its only weakness would be earthquake.
Exactly. And if you're floating above Earthquake, you're Flash Fire, you're a Ghost type, a lot of Tauros sets can't hit you,
You see,
which is why I was running
I didn't
Showdown.
consider that, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I used a Tauros with Flare Blitz, Close Combat, Stone Edge, Trailblaze, Life Orb on my offensive team that I used in that tournament, and that was pretty good. It just always gets value. It always hits something really hard. You also have Nidoqueen and Tyrantrum, like, and Serperior obviously ruins everything too. So like, despite the easy presentation of this is gonna be a stall meta, definitely not.
Definitely not. Hmm. Well, I think we've gone for a bit. Um, are there any closing remarks that you want to make? Anybody you want to do a shout out on or whatever you want to do?
Honestly, I think I've said my piece plenty here. I've been yapping a lot tonight, and I've said a lot. I said a lot of what I want to say in my videos. So if you're somehow watching this interview and you haven't seen my video on the my experience in the tournament, you should go watch that.
Oh, definitely. I your video on the January tournament experience was actually a good insight into what the format was.
I hope it gave people a good idea of what was going on that month, which is why I combined Clodsire with Handsome Squidward. Clodsire was the goat of that month.
Definitely. Okay. Well then, thank you, Portobello, for joining me. It was an honor having this interview with you.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk about my January experience and also a little bit of February.
Of course, and congratulations again for the trios tournament and for finally becoming a 35 pokes champion. Welcome to the club.
It's a good club to be in.
And for you guys that are still listening to this, thank you for making it to this far of the video. And stay posted for the February 2025. Maybe Portobello is going to win and be the first
Let's not get
defending
ahead of
champion.
ourselves. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, I beat one guy with a pincer, and suddenly we were making these remarks. Can't be doing that. That's actually a funny closing thing. Roof T and I was my first opponent in the bracket for January. He was also my first opponent in the bracket for February.
Oh boy.
He did not have a good time earlier today against my dumbass sets.
Well then, hopefully that's a what do they call that? Not an omen. What's the reverse of that? Um,
It was bad for Roof T and I as well. It was bad.
It was definitely an omen for Rifty. Anyways, yeah, let's just wrap this up. All right, thank you guys. Thank you, Portobello. See you guys later.
Take care.